So here's the first thing I did is I filed articles of impeachment against Alejandro Mayorkas, who is the Secretary of Homeland Security. I filed those last August. And I want to explain about those flights. It may be news, but it's not new. This administration has been doing that for months.
My guest today is Congressman Andy Biggs, who represents Arizona's 5th Congressional District. Congressman, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Absolutely. So, Congressman, let's talk immigration. It's a huge issue here in America these days. And I specifically want to talk to you today about something that's going on at the Supreme Court. So, the Supreme Court is currently hearing arguments on a public charge rule, which was a rule that President Trump had where if you were an immigrant that took too many social services like Medicare or food stamps, you would be ineligible for citizenship. What are congressional Republicans doing to make sure that that rule, if the Supreme Court doesn't agree with the Republican argument, that make sure that argument stays in place?
Well, there's legislation and there's also communication with the president and the folks who implement the USCIS, United States Customs and Immigration Services. So there is an attempt to let them know that at least the will of the plurality in Congress is against this administration's position.
Okay. And is there legislation in the works, like something we could point to say, this is what Republicans are doing? Yeah,
so I've been talking, so I'm the co-chair of the Border Security Caucus, and we have some folks that are working on legislation, and my team has actually been working on legislation, just kind of sitting there waiting to see if we need to do it, and trying to work with other folks. And we don't need to get ahead of my colleagues who are working on this, but yes, it is in the works.
Good, okay. So something else that's in the world of immigration is this story that we've heard from the New York Post about how illegal immigrants were being flown secretly in the night to various places around the United States. When confronted with this, the administration has lied about the purpose of the flight, saying it was just to relocate children. Do congressional Republicans have a plan to hold the administration accountable for this?
Well, the way we hold them accountable is we're going to, So here's the first thing I did is I filed articles of impeachment against Alejandro Mayorkas, who is the Secretary of Homeland Security. I filed those last August. And I want to explain about those flights. It may be news, but it's not new. This administration has been doing that for months. And just last month, they released well over 60,000 of the 150,000 people that they apprehended at the border. They released those into the country. They sent a few thousand back to Haiti, and they sent a few back home. Who knows where the rest of them are? They may be detained for a little bit, but they're going to be released, and they're going everywhere. And that's why that was news. Is to kind of wait, why are they going there? Well, I'm supporting legislation that would say, look, if you're going to send these people someplace, send them to Martha's Vineyard, send them to San Francisco. Because the reality is, until those people who are so far from the border, they don't seem to feel it, start feeling it, they're not going to do anything to do the border. But the first thing is to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. The second thing is, my personal position is that we should not be voting for any legislation, unless it has something to correct the border problem attached to it.
And that's regardless of the subject of
regardless of the subject, because I mean, why should we facilitate passage of the Biden administration's bad left-wing policies anyway, when they're allowing our border to be overrun?
So in terms of the administration's policies on immigration, we've heard this new adage kind of come out that every state is a border state now. Do you find that to be accurate, and how has that administration made it worse?
Well, so the Biden administration made it worse because they've ceded the control of the border to the cartels. One intelligence briefing I had said that in every community in the country, there is a cartel presence, a Mexican crime cartel presence. The opioid crisis, the number one killer of young adults, is now throughout the country. 2 million fentanyl pills seized last year, roughly 10% of the total. That's 20 million pills came in, 18 million of them wandering around, of which DEA says something in the order of 40% are lethal. Yeah, every state, every community is facing the implication of a border that is open, where the laws are not enforced.
Now, I understand we were talking before the show, you were just at the border yesterday. Can you give us an update about what it looks like?
Yeah, so I was down in Del Rio. In Del Rio, remember, 15,000 people under the bridge. They're interdicting about 1,000 a day. So every 2 weeks, you have the same number that you saw crammed under the bridge that are being stopped. But at the same time, you probably have somewhere near that many that they can't interdict. Our Border Patrol men and women doing a great job, but they're overrun. 26 deaths in the Rio Grande River this year already. 550 basically rescue operations in the river. Talked to ranchers and farmers down there. They're getting hammered. They can't go out of their houses without weapons. Many of them have to lock down with weapons. I was talking to a sheriff in Arizona last week, and I said, tell me what you're seeing in your county. He said his deputies rescued a woman. She had a bag of pills. They said, what are the pills for? And she said, I knew I'd be raped repeatedly coming across the border by the cartels that she had to pay money to. So these are morning after pills. It is absolutely inhumane, a national security crisis, and basically a domestic crisis, and this administration doesn't want to do anything about it.
That is an angle that doesn't get discussed as much as the illegal immigration issue of entering into the country, is the immigrants themselves. Is there any way that we can both make sure our border is secure and make sure these people are safe?
The best way to make sure they're safe is to make sure that we secure the border, enforce the laws. When we do that, far fewer people are coming across. I mean, in October in Yuma, their increase year over year for 1 month was over 2,400%. 2,400%. I mean, think about that. And when people aren't coming, they're not flooding the cartels with money. The violence against these people is not happening because they're not coming. They're staying in their homes. And you have 140 different nations that are coming across last year. This is not your father's illegal immigration, where it was Mexican nationals coming across, working a couple of seasons in crops, and then going home. This is people. I've seen people from basically Bangladesh, Uzbekistan, Belarus, Syria, all come in while I've been down on the border. I've seen people come in that are dressed as good as you and I. They have roller boards. They're filled with clean, good-looking clothes. They get across the border. They shed the old stuff, put on the stuff they have. They come walking across, and they're holding their cell phone up, FaceTiming back home. That's what's happening. This is not a kind of a refugee asylum situation. What it is people coming to the United States because Joe Biden said come.
Now, Joe Biden also has an issue with releasing data. There is a sort of tradition that the ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, will release immigration data each year to show how many illegal immigrants we've detained, how many people have gotaways, all these people. Why do you think that the Biden administration has not released this data?
It would make them look utterly as incompetent as they are, but they're more than incompetent. This is willful. Make no mistake. This is what they want, but they don't. They're not transparent. They always cry transparency. Oh, be transparent, but then they're not going to be transparent, and the numbers are horrific. I mean, because we're basing everything on anecdotal evidence that we get in, and if this sample is accurate across the board or within this area, you'll see enough data that Joe Biden would probably be impeached.
Interesting stuff. That was Congressman Andy Biggs, who represents Arizona's 5th Congressional District. Congressman, really appreciate your time.
Thanks much. Good being with you.